I'm making lines over here. I'm from South America.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Bo and Andrew didn't go to college because that's just the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast.
Okay, let's do one sentence at a time. I'll start it.
Yeah.
It's 2025, and we're back.
New year, new us.
Sort of. Welcome to Get Dumped On.
An Info Dump podcast.
Guys, this is weird. You got to do more.
I was going to cut out the middle part where it was quiet, but now I can't because you acknowledged it.
You guys are bad at saying sentences. Andrew, that was not a full sentence.
I'm trying.
Bo,
We're doing
New
a thing
Year,
here.
new
You guys
us.
shut up. You shut
come
up.
on.
Bo,
You
you're
could do
doing great.
better.
You're doing good.
Yeah, I think you're doing fantastic.
I think
Anyway.
that it's so telling
Okay.
that 2 years into this podcast, the podcast fights about what the name of the podcast is.
I don't like the.
It's an Info Dump podcast.
Yeah, but Zach tried to rebrand us as the Info Dump
the
podcast.
Info
And then
Dump.
I didn't
Listen.
like it at first, and then I did like it. It was Stockholm Syndromed into me.
Literally, I just don't know what we are anymore. What are we, some
were
kind of
better off.
suicide squad?
When we took a 2-month break.
Anyway, welcome to the Get Dumped On. Bo, you can finish that.
Oh, sorry.
However
An
you please.
Info Dump podcast.
God damn it.
Yeah.
We were away for a few months. It wasn't really planned, but we are back. All of us were traveling, and then we all got really freaking sick, and then the holidays happened, and I'm still sick. It's the
Guys,
whole
did
thing.
you know that it's really difficult to find a time for 4 adults to record a podcast?
And the
Especially
fact that we
around
did
the
it for so
holidays.
long
Yeah, especially around the holidays.
was kind
Honestly,
of a miracle.
I think it's amazing that we went as long as we did without the podcast collapsing for multiple weeks.
Well, yeah,
you
I mean, it
know?
would have been better if I didn't have laryngitis for a month.
So
Probably over a month. I still
honestly,
kind of
yeah.
have it a little bit.
It is Ash's fault for being sick, thinking double sick, and then Zach getting her sick. It's
Well,
just,
then I was
Yeah.
sick.
yeah, but you guys, I
And
mean, it's hard
you
to
were
blame
sick.
you. I was never sick.
Ultimately,
No, I was the
it's
only person who
Bo's
wasn't sick.
fault for having such a bad microphone in one episode that we had to scrap the entire
That's
episode.
true. That's true.
You guys missed out.
They
on
don't know
gold.
about that, but now
And
they do.
That was a gold episode too. I think it was probably my top tier episode of
it
me.
was fine. It was okay.
Yeah. So we took a few months off just because we were all very sick and gross.
Okay,
and except
okay,
for
not
Bo.
me.
He was just
I
sitting there waiting.
yeah,
he was
I
just,
was
he was
just
just like the SpongeBob where he's sitting in the diner. That was Bo.
Uh-huh.
Or when he puts the finger puppets on his hands.
The
He draws
gang's
faces
all
on his
here.
hands.
Yep.
Well, but if you're back, welcome back.
Because
If
we're
you're-
back.
If you're new, because it's 2025 and you're looking for a new podcast, maybe your New Year's resolution is to listen to more podcasts, and this is the first one you clicked on. Some fucking how? Congratulations!
And for
Welcome
some
to the
reason-
Info Dump podcast.
Yeah, I don't know how you found us. Please, if you know how you found us, please tell us so that we can continue to exploit that channel.
And if you are new, the regular people in this podcast, my name is Andrew. That was Bo. You know Bo. He did the intro with me. Well, he tried to before we got really interrupted by Ash and
Oh,
Zach,
intro
who
Bo.
are also here.
Hi, I'm Ash and Zach.
So, yep, that's us.
Just
Today,
kidding,
apparently,
I'm
we have
Zach.
an interesting one. I don't know what Zach is doing, but he's definitely
this
doing
was a
one.
This was like a viewer request.
Andrew,
right?
I've told you what we are doing. I've told you
We took
several
3
times.
months off. Do you think I
Multiple
remember
times.
anything?
I told you like 2 weeks ago what this was
Come
about.
on. You know I don't remember things.
And it was because one of your friends said that we should do it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I bet that I could do a pretty decent one on this." And then
Well, I said I was
you were
gonna do
like,
it,
"I
then
don't
you
remember
said- Why don't you
anyone
just
ever
say
doing
what
that."
it
And then I
is?
found the text message that you sent.
Why don't you
so-
just say what it is?
Zach
we
likes
were
to draw
gonna-
things out. New year, same him.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't believe in resolutions. This
My resolution is for you
is-
to be a better person.
My resolution is to be a worse person.
Son of a bitch, they counteract.
He's off to a good start.
Now my wishes are going to come true.
Wait, before
Yeah.
Zach gets started, what are your New Year's resolutions?
My New Year's resolution is to eat a type of cheese I have never had before.
That's a good
Okay.
resolution.
I have the same resolution I've always had. It's always been the same every single year, is just eat more guacamole.
Did you keep track of how much guacamole you ate this year?
No.
Then
I just
how will
always
you know
want
that
more.
how will you know that you've
Huh.
beaten it?
I don't know. But it's been mine every single year since I was like 10, so.
Andrew, you really need to improve your guacamole record keeping.
You don't need to tell me what to do, Mr. I don't have resolutions.
My resolution is to take more photos of birds.
I'm gonna need a video
Oh,
blog of every time
gross.
you eat guacamole in the year 2025.
That would actually really be fun.
I want you
And
to get one of those
I need to see
360
each new
cameras that clips
cheese.
to your head.
Each new cheese you get, Ash, I need to see which cheese
Well,
it is.
I just want at least one. I just one.
Yeah,
my resolution is just one.
I still want to see it. So just so I know, you gotta tell me if it's good or not, so I could try that said cheese.
Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be good. I really like cheese.
Okay,
Cheese is
good.
dope.
Most
cheese guy.
cheeses are good. I'm going to tell you, most cheeses are good. I mean, I've had a couple of cheeses that are not my favorite, but the majority of cheeses are good cheeses.
But what's your
It's a
resolution?
hot take, but I'll stick to it.
Less cheese and less guacamole.
Oh, wow. Interesting. More for us.
Bo is on
Just live
track
a
to
sadder
have a
life in
very
2025.
boring 2025.
This is what it is. I could say that.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to lose weight. Oh, what it is. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna lie.
There's a classic Bo idiom there. It is what it is. Hey, speaking of what it is this episode about?
We're
Good
going to
segue.
talk about the Nazca Lines.
You know, what if
Oh.
we don't?
I remember this now.
Yeah.
You told me
Ash,
about
we
this 2
have
weeks
to
ago.
because I spent a bunch of time researching them. So I'm making use of these notes. These notes are going to be put to use.
Shout out to my friend Morgan who requested these probably a year ago. Sorry, it took a while. Zach
a very
is
long
very
time
slow.
ago.
Hey.
And yet I'm
This
also
is
the
Zach's
only
fault.
person who regularly puts work into this podcast. So
I put a lot of work. I put a lot of work in this.
The
podcast.
hundreds of hours that I've spent editing this podcast is screaming inside of me right now.
the thousands of hours that I've spent researching episodes for this podcast.
I'm eating more guacamole after this.
Dad, they're fighting again.
It's barely a fight.
More of a scuffle than a fight.
Anyway,
Yeah.
shout out to you, Morgan. Zach knows a lot about the Nazca Lines, so you're in luck.
Yeah, so they were from Lord of the Rings. They're the Nazgul. They were hunting Frodo and his buddies.
Yeah.
Meat is
And
back
what
on
you
the
got
menu.
is
That's
boys.
everything that I had written down.
Speaking
They
of
were
meat,
like-
what's your favorite kind
Play
of
us
meat?
out,
And
Bo.
then the Eagles came and they're like, rah, rah.
Yeah,
Bruh.
the Philadelphia Eagles showed up and then they footballed.
And they had a
And
good.
Yeah,
then
the-
Sauron and Gandalf kissed a little bit.
Just
It
a
was
little
really
bit.
Yeah.
cute.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cute.
And the
One
new
ring
kids
to
on the
rule them
block
all.
were there.
One ring to rule
It
them
didn't
all,
work
and they
out, but
kissed.
in that moment they were happy.
they were ready to drop. Everyone had dropped their arms and end this ridiculous war. But life sometimes comes at you a different way. Back to war.
And then Gollum kissed Smeagol. It was just him doing that thing where you put your arms behind your back.
It's like, Larry Spiegel.
Okay, shall I begin the episode?
No.
Between the towns of Nazca and Palpa, 50 miles apart on the south coast of Peru, there's
Is
an
this your
arid
Werner Herzog?
plateau,
Because it's not very good.
a
Yeah, can
flat
you do it better?
area of rocky desert.
Hey,
I'm
hey,
not
everyone,
even doing an accent. I'm trying to do
I'm
like
trying-
a dramatic narrator voice.
Oh.
I'm trying to listen to Zach dramatically set the scene for us, and you guys are talking over it.
I'm trying
But I
to.
wanna- I wanna- I wanna-
Quiet.
I thought you were so used to the Werner Herzog. I'm sorry.
I would like him to
I'm
do
not
the
even.
voice.
I'm not even attempting to do a Werner
But I
Herzog.
want you to
It
do it
doesn't
now,
sound
like-
anything like a Werner Herzog.
But it sounds
voice.
like you're doing a bad
You're
impression
the one
of it,
who's
and
looking
now
stupid for
I
even
want it.
thinking it would be a Werner Herzog.
I need it.
But can it be? though?
Please?
We've established that my Werner Herzog impression is not
It's
good,
great.
and I'm not going to be doing it.
But you said it sounded like you're doing someone who was doing a bad Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
What?
It didn't sound anything like Werner Herzog.
I wasn't
I
even
know.
doing
That's
an
why I was
accent.
sad.
You guys have such a boner for Werner Herzog. It's crazy.
And
Only
yet,
when Zach
you
does it.
can't
Only
even
when Zach
name
does
3
it.
of his movies.
Oh,
Name
well,
3 Werner Herzog movies right now.
He was
The
in The
one
Mandalorian.
wait, he was in that one. He was in Parks and Rec when he was trying to sell them that
Those are not
dollhouse.
movies. That is not a movie.
Yeah, and also
Them
do
TV
like
shows.
real Werner Herzog projects and not cameos.
What do you mean?
All right,
He's
I'll
a-
Google it. I'll
Yeah,
Google
hold
it
on.
while you do the impression. Go.
How do you spell his? There it is.
You don't even know how to spell Werner Herzog's
He
name.
was a
Fake
Jack
fan.
Reacher, my
Fake
favorite movie.
fan.
Grizzly Man.
Okay, we're talking about Werner Herzog movies, not movies in which Werner Herzog
Oh.
had a cameo.
Nosferatu,
That's
the vampire.
that's a fine line.
Nailed it. I mean, 3 movies.
There you go.
All right, Zach, take it away. Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog, take it away.
Between the towns of Nazca and Palpa,
Oh, God
50
damn.
miles apart on the south coast of Peru, there's an arid plateau, a flat area of rocky desert. Looking at it from a certain perspective, you might think it a perfect canvas for massive pieces of art. And you wouldn't be the first person to think that, as the Paracas and Nazca people beat you to it by over 1,500 years. Centered in an area of about 20 square miles, the Nazca Lines, as they're commonly called now, consist of 800 combined miles of straight, crisscrossing lines and dozens
How
of
many
shapes
football fields is that?
over 100 feet in width in the shapes of animals, peoples, plants, and etc.
So they're
Animals,
aliens.
people's plants, etc. Got it. Cool.
Yeah, and etc.
It sounds like crop circles.
Do you
but
say and
better.
etc. or just etc.?
And etc. You could say and etc. No, you can't because the et in etc. means and.
What
Thank
idiot.
you. Wow.
The Nazca Lines started becoming a major tourist site in the 1930s with the advent of passenger planes and have become a major source of conjecture, hypotheses, and nonsense about their origins.
They're just big.
Are
They're
they-
big They're big pictures, right?
So they're big
on the
pictures.
plateaus.
On the plateaus, there's a combination. Some of them are lines and some of them are pictures. They're drawn into the ground on this massive, not massive, 20 square miles roughly.
What are they made? What are they drawn from?
Wait, 20
Arid
fucking
plateau.
miles?
20 square miles. And
That's
they are
Yeah. Are they too big to see from the ground? Like, do you have to see them from the sky?
not really. You could see them from hills. We're going to be talking about it. I'm
Okay.
covering this. We'll talk about the Nazca, and I'll show you some of the pictures once we get to it. But before we
What are they
really start
made out
talking
of?
about the Nazca Lines, we have to, because you know me and you know the way that I am, we have
Do
to
they
start
look
this
like me?
episode by talking about who the Nazca people were.
Yeah, I want to hear that so bad, but can you tell me what they're made out of?
They are okay. So basically the ground is covered in rocks, and they removed the rocks to unveil the dirt beneath the rocks. And because of the way that the soil is, it makes it stands out and makes pictures. I have this whole
That's
thing in my
fucking-
notes.
that's
I was
fucking
going to
sick.
bring
So
it
they
up.
they used a shovel.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
They
It's
shoveled.
like
them.
addition by subtraction, you know?
yeah, exactly.
It's like
I
my
love it.
dogs run in the backyard in certain areas. They made their own Nazca lines in my backyard where grass no longer grows.
Exactly. Or Doug from down the street drawing a dick in the snow with his feet.
God damn it, Doug. I told you time and again, do that on your own lawn. Nah, I'm just
I
kidding.
love Doug.
You're good, Doug.
Okay, so just to show you what we're talking about, I'm going to post a picture in the chat that we have. And viewers, listeners, go ahead and Google.
Oh, I'm going to describe it so good for your baby ears. Don't even worry about it.
Mhm.
I'm going to
Don't
paint
even
you a
fucking
mind
Google
picture.
it. Put your phone away. Whoa.
This is probably one of the most
Whoa.
famous ones.
It looks
Oh,
like
that's
a
fucking
hummingbird.
huge, dude.
Why is the ground giving
Yeah.
me a finger?
Did Doug draw that? With his-
Classic Doug John Dick.
So this
That doesn't
is
look anything like a
what I'm-
dick. If that's what your dick looks like, you need to see someone about that.
like a bird covered in forks.
I mean, it's exactly what you described. I mean, it's hard to describe it because it is what it is, right? It's lines in a desert that make a fun shape that's in a big, very big scale. Is it a hummingbird?
huge.
Yes, that's a hummingbird. So from one side to the other, it's about 320 feet long.
Wow.
How? What? How?
From
How many
tip,
football
from tip
fields
to
is that?
tail, it's about 320 feet long. It is 216 feet wide. A football field is 100 yards, right? So it's about a football field. It's a little longer than a football field, right? Bo, you know about football. How long is a football field?
You know I hate football.
Okay. If you
fucking
had to
liar.
guess, how long would you say a football field is, Bo?
120 yards.
Okay.
Oh, because of the end zones.
Yes.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, so it's about the size of a football field,
Sick.
which is pretty cool.
So they played football.
That is a hummingbird made.
American
it's the
football.
hummingbird Nazca line. So Google a picture of that, please.
I love it. It's great.
That looks insane because like the lines are very straight.
Yeah, they're very
Extremely.
well made.
When was this made?
Yesterday.
We're going to talk about it. I have a script.
I'm
sir.
sorry. I'm very curious. I'm interested in this.
You
I'm
know,
sorry
Zach,
if I'm
you can
interested.
sometimes you can let go of your rigid structure and just let us ask questions and answer them as they come. Go with the flow. It's a new year.
But I put things in an order for a
Okay, I'm
reason.
sorry. I'm sorry for asking
But
questions.
First, I set the scene, I put the little introductory grain there.
Yeah, but without
Then
any accents.
We go into a little bit of background. We talk about the Nazca people. They lived on the south coast of Peru between 100 BCE and somewhere between 650 and 800 CE, depending on the source.
It's a bit
That's
of
a
a
long
time ago.
fucking time ago.
So
These lasted that long. Holy shit.
Yeah.
How the
I'm
fuck
gonna
did
tell-
How?
We're gonna talk about it. I'm
not asking you. I'm not asking you directly. I'm just like, you know, when something crazy happens and you go, why?
What?
Like you're not asking for an answer. You're just
Zach,
yelling.
That's insane.
Zach, how long ago was it?
It was between 100 BCE and 650 to 800 CE. So because of the time period that this was, they didn't have written records, and they basically everything that we know about them is what we can glean from archaeological evidence.
What if this is their records? Oh my God.
And whatever, we don't even know really what language they spoke or what they called themselves, because while their language that they spoke probably persisted in the area through the Inca times, the Inca insistence on Quechua being the lingua franca of the empire meant that their language was probably effectively erased, which is kind of sad, but this is just the reality of the situation.
The Inca were pretty big on, hey, you better do stuff the way that we want you to.
Mm-hmm. You can keep some of your traditions, but also it's really important that you speak Quechua and agree that our sun god is better than whatever your god is. You can keep worshiping your god, but just make sure that he's not as important as ours.
Better.
And we'll keep the effigy here with us, because it would be a shame if something happened to it if you didn't worship the sun god.
It would be a shame if something happened to it. So now we don't know what they call themselves, and even the word Nazca has a few possible origins. So one of which is that the Spaniard who was given the land that they used to live on after the Spanish conquest was Don Francisco Nazca. I couldn't verify that, but it's one of the things that is kind of purported as an origin. There's also
it's out there.
There's also claims that Nazca in Quechua means pain and suffering, or person who suffers. I mean, you could speculate maybe that's related to the person Nazca is a piece of shit, or it's like the harshness of the Nazca Plateau, which is a very kind of dry, arid environment. There's a lot of weirdness to colonial and post-colonial Quechua, because there's, the Quechua was already overriding a lot of colonial, a lot of native languages when the Inca were spreading it, and then the Spanish forced a lot of Spanish integration into Quechua. There's a lot of syncretism through that. So pre-colonial and post-colonial Quechua there's some weirdness going on there.
Is it because the records were tainted by those who took over?
More or less, yeah.
But they were those who suffered. They're the original emos.
Exactly, yeah. It's the Midwest.
Cut my wrists and Nazca lines.
They've all wear their hair so that's covering one of their eyes.
Is the proper pronunciation Nazca?
Nazca is the way that they say it down there. You can also say Nazca. I'm saying Nazca because it's always how I heard it when I was in South America, was people saying Nazca.
Oh, we get it.
Good
You were in
enough for
South
me?
America.
Oh, God, you did archaeology shit. Look at me.
I almost got killed by a jaguar.
I don't do
I got
my
drunk and
Werner.
fell
Zachary,
over.
they
Impressions
hate you
no
because they
more.
ain't you.
But nobody's going to yell at you for saying Nazca. I'm just not going to acknowledge that.
I was just curious about what is
Yeah.
proper.
I never learned how to speak Quechua, though. It was a personal failure. If anyone listening to this does know Quechua, write in and let me know if Nazca means pain and suffering. There's a lot of fake Quechua origins spreading around online. Anyway, what we do know about the Nazca people
Bastards.
is that
Faking.
Fake stuff online? Who would go online and lie?
people just go on the internet and tell lies.
Online and telling lies. Name a better duo.
Nazca and being
A
sad.
more classic duo. So what we do know about the Nazca people is that it was probably comprised of multiple local chiefdoms, kind of like small independent chiefdoms that were centered around a site called Kawachi, which I venture is pretty sweet. If you have the chance, go to Kawachi. And so the local populations, as was kind of common in the Andes at the time, had a tradition of ritual pilgrimage. We talked about this in the Cool Sites in Peru episode when we about Chavin de Huantar and how that was a
everybody
pilgrimage
went there.
center.
Yeah.
Kawachi was probably also a pilgrimage center. And we see this in Nazca pottery, which has depictions of these sorts of rituals. You've got a lot of there's this one really interesting piece that's a series of clay models of a group of travelers, and one of them has a parrot on his shoulder, which is really cool because the parrot's not native to the area, which means that they imported the parrot. Very interesting. So they had tamed companion
What
parrots.
the hell?
They had imported them from the Amazon on the other side of the Andes.
I usually get stuff from Amazon too.
Hey.
They were prime customers.
There's also paintings and depictions of hunters having companion parrots. And my theory was maybe that they had trained the parrots to mimic the calls of their prey as like a sort of like
that
a
is
duck
a theory.
call, but it was a parrot. That is my speculation.
I think it was because it was cool. And they said,
hypothesis.
They dressed up as pirates one day, and then they just never stopped.
Yeah. This is what my dissertation was going to be on if I had stayed in grad school.
It's called Fashion Sweetie. Look it up.
There's also at Kawachi and another Nazca site called Carrizales, there have been mummies of parrots recovered, like parrots that had been buried with people, wrapped in textile, and they mummified because it's so dry. You can recover, like you can see the feathers and stuff like that still. It's pretty sweet.
I like that.
And so
I think people should be buried with pets more often.
I agree.
I want to be buried with my dogs, but I also want to die the same day my dogs die because I don't want
to kill your
die.
dogs if you die.
Yeah, if you die beforehand, are you putting your dogs down?
They'll probably die before you. I mean,
no. What I think what Andrew is asking is for when you die, you want us to just jam you in a freezer and wait until your dogs to naturally die and then bury you with the dogs, right?
Why are we assuming that the dogs are outliving the man?
Have you seen how Andrew lives? He's got like 3 years left tops.
Yeah, like I always put myself in dangerous situations, and I bring my dog with me in every single situation because if I'm going out, he's going out as well.
If I fall, you're going down with me.
Yeah, when I'm playing hockey, I've got like the baby Carlos set up where Perry's on my chest and Frankie's on my back. So if I died playing hockey, they're dead with me.
I think your wife would have something to say about that.
She would be very upset if she knew that they were with me. She doesn't listen to this podcast. She doesn't like me.
Well, back on the pottery. One of the things that the Nazca is known for, and one of the things that I would recommend looking up if you're interested in the Nazca, is their tradition of really nicely decorated pottery. It's polychrome, which means that it is painted in multiple colors. They've got these really smooth paint on them.
Fucking polychrome?
Fucking polychrome, dude.
Shout out to Balatro.
Some of which shows their everyday life in paintings, but also indicates that they had this really complex religious, mythological or religious system that we are barely able to understand. There's like
there's a doctor like holding a stethoscope up to him, like, sorry, man, you got polychrome.
I diagnose you with God.
They're like, oh, Jesus. He's like, yes, there it is.
There's a lot of really cool, like abstract depictions of mythical beings that are like made up of multiple animals jammed together, like a feline head and a whale body, and like it's got tusks and like a bunch of really like bonkers stuff. Let me see if I can find a good
Give me
one
that fucking
for you.
chimera.
Ash is just screaming from across the. What is happening? Ash just walked to the other side of the room just to be a hype man on the other side of the room.
I just got really excited. I didn't want to yell directly into the microphone.
Start running.
They call
Do you want me to yell directly into the microphone?
Ash just doing laps while screaming.
The thing I remember from my thesis is that they call it the anthropomorphic mythical being, or the AMB for short.
They're AMBs, or they're AMBs. These are some quality AMBs.
AMBs.
And so here's one. This is a rollout that's painted. And so one of the things that you will also notice from this depiction is that
severed heads.
It's cat dog.
Yeah, it's kind of a cat dog, but a big feature of this art is this motif of trophy heads. And these increase in frequency as time goes on, but it's common for a lot of their religious symbolism to include trophy heads. And so severed head motifs, or they'll have the being like holding a knife in one hand and a severed head in the other, which is pretty cool. And so for a while, it was thought that this was just kind of like a confusing motif until some excavations found heads with like a big, like skulls or mummified heads that had a big hole drilled into the center of the forehead and like a rope going through it. And so there was some aspect of head hunting going on within the Nazca. It was a local thing. They've done like stable isotope testing on the heads, and it was all like within the Nazca. So they were just head hunting each other. And it increases over time. So there's probably more conflict between these local chiefdoms as time went on. Probably there was a scarcity of resources over time or something. So the Nazca society was eventually conquered by and incorporated into the Wari Empire around 650 CE. I worked at the Wari capital site. It was pretty cool.
Oh, Wari sympathizer.
So their society was more
fucked up by this figure. It's got two heads and it's got like a snake body, but it also has legs.
Yeah, the art that you posted, for those who can't see it, it's giving me MC Escher vibes for some reason, and I really like it.
Yeah, it's a lot of the use of like perspective and size is really cool. Just the way that everything kind of fits together. It's like when you're reading a book, you're watching a movie, and you can tell that it's supposed to be a metaphor, but you can't grasp what it's a metaphor for.
Yeah.
But what's it a metaphor for?
Life, man.
Nailed it.
Yeah, man.
We'll have Bo post this picture on the Instagram, aka Zach post this picture on the Instagram, and Bo forget.
So by the time that the Nazca Society was incorporated into the Wari Empire, and so for people who don't remember this from our last episode about Peru, the Wari Empire was kind of the first the first empire that spanned the Andes. They from like 600 to 1000 CE roughly. That was kind of the characteristic of the Middle Horizon period, and they started the system of roads and a lot of the infrastructure that the Inca eventually built on when they became the dominant force in the region. Like 300 years later.
I like
building roads is so cool.
Yeah.
Imagine a world with no roads, can't get in between no cities. You're like, oh my gosh, we have to go over fields and stuff. But then all of a sudden, someone's like, hey,
how do we get to McDonald's?
What if we built a road? I'd be like, oh my god, fuck yeah, I love roads.
These roads are incredible too. The Inca when they like really built upon this, it's called the Capacñan, which is the Royal Road, and it's just really incredibly the engineering behind it is just incredible, because most of these roads aren't going on flat surfaces. They're going up and down and between mountains. It's ridiculous. It's incredible. But so by this time, the Nazca region was in disarray. There's pretty good evidence that around 500 CE, there was a massive flood, probably caused by a La Nina, and it did tremendous amounts of damage to all of their agricultural fields and buildings. There's signs of flood damage on a lot of this stuff. And then there were these trees called wamango trees, and they had deforested them to do all of the wood and that they needed for various things. And
without all the trees, what's going to stop the water?
Exactly. So the flood plus the deforestation is probably what led to the decline of the Nazca. And
should have built an ark.
Yeah, classic stuff.
They deforested too close to the sun.
To the
God.
So that's who the Nazca. That's kind of the story of the Nazca.
So in the meantime, before the Great Flood happened, they were like, let's do some fucking lines, dog. Not cocaine.
They're like, let's do drugs and make lines.
Did
they do drugs? Do you know this? Any
they were people in the Andes. I mean, the Andean society don't like, this is a great over exaggeration, but the Andean society was more or less founded on drugs.
Hell yeah, good for them.
Because
it's possible that all society everywhere was founded on drugs. It's fine.
Yeah, it's they're not special about that. But there was there's a lot of tradition of using San Pedro cactus up and down the Andes, which is
we talked about that, right?
Hallucinogenic cactus. Yeah, this is a big part of the pilgrimages to Trevin de Huantar.
The dude turned it into, he does in his nosebleeds, and then he turns into like a jaguar.
His nose is bleed. It starts running, because that's what happens when you snort cactus.
How do you know that?
I personally haven't experienced it, but there are people who did experimental archaeology of it and wrote about their experiences.
Their name is Bo.
It's me.
Bo.
Hey, it was me all along.
So the Nazca Lines. What are the Nazca Lines? Let's talk about
what are
geoglyphs.
the Nazca Lines.
Zach, what
They're
are
lines made by the Nazca.
Scientifically, in archaeology, we call these geoglyphs. So a geoglyph is any design that's drawn.
I call them geodudes.
Hey.
Exactly, geodudes. So glyph is a symbol, and geo means it's in the earth. So this is like a hieroglyph.
And geo is short for a guy named Giovanni.
This is a geoglyph.
And he's walking here.
Hey, I'm lines in here.
I'm making lines over here. I'm from South America.
Geoglyphs are not in any way unique to South America. As long as there have been people,
there's friggin' geoglyphs everywhere, dude.
Yeah, they've been making drawings in the ground.
I love drawing on rocks.
And there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can carve a trench. You can pour lime. You could like pour lime powder onto the ground. You can make long
Classic
piles of stone. People have done them all over the world. There's a really funny one in Britain, which is called the
I know what you're talking about.
the Cern Abbas giant. Bo, why don't you describe this guy to the audience? Give them the real picture in their mind's eye.
Oh, fuck yeah. So this guy.
Whoa, hey, hello, sir.
It's a tiny image. I'm like, oh my God. Could you not find a bigger image at all? No? Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway,
just...
imagine a dude.
Why does it have nipples?
And the reason why we know he's a dude, well, first of all, he has nipples. Let's clarify that. We know he's a dude because he's got a massive dog, but that it points up. It points north.
Straight directly towards the sun.
Straight up midnight.
It's straight up. Yeah, it's just straight pointing up. You think I'm exaggerating? I'm not. And he has a club for some reason. Why does he have a club? I don't know. Especially when he should be using that
Probably
thing.
to whack his dong back down to earth.
See, that's the result of using Viagra for more than 4 hours right there.
He didn't call his doctor.
So he brought a club.
He is, talk about Homo erectus.
That is, whatever this is called, geodonging, this thing is huge.
Geodonging. The new trend hitting the scenes. Geodonging.
It's incredibly detailed though, because this picture is taken from, I assume, an airplane, and it is so vibrant.
It's big on a hillside.
So it's made of chalk dust poured in trenches on the ground, and so it's in Britain, and it's people love
Any
it.
dongs in the Nazca Lines?
It's in West Dorset. There is a dong, maybe a dong.
Nazca Lines.
Some people thought that it was an ancient fertility guy, like Victorians would have sex on the wiener of it to ensure conception. But there's actually no literary references to it earlier than 1694, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, you're still talking about the English giant. Got it.
Yeah, the English guy.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure this was something that someone in the late 1700s, early 1800s did. And we're like, look at this thing.
Yeah, late 1600s.
Oh, late 1600s?
Yeah. So that's fun.
You're fun.
But that's not about this one. There's plenty
Show us
even
the Nazca
in
dongs.
the Americas.
Show us the Nazca dongs.
There's some in the Atacama Desert in Chile. There's some in California. They're called the Balayan Talios in the Colorado Desert. And recently, LiDAR surveys have found geoglyphs hidden under the trees in the Amazon, which is pretty cool. So thanks to lasers. So the Nazca lines themselves are divided into the lines and the shapes, the figurative geoglyphs. So the straight lines are incredible. They're these lots of different directions. There's patterns, but they're hard to discern the patterns because there's lines on top of lines. They're overlapping each other. As I said earlier, there's 800 total miles of straight lines. It's really wild. But the most recognizable part are the figurative ones, the massive animals, plants. The largest ones are hundreds of feet long, like the hummingbird that I showed earlier is 320 feet long. The longest one is in the shape of a condor, and it is 440 feet long from tip to tail.
Was this just one person having a really good time, or was this a cultural, hey, let's all get together?
This was
and make some
one
wine?
man's special interest.
One man's special interest. They were made over the course of a few hundred years. So they have been able to be dated. They've been dated by essentially.
On that scale, it has to be a coordinated effort.
Yeah, it was a coordinated effort by different people. You can date them essentially because a lot of them have artifacts in and around them. So you can look at what is the earliest phase of artifact that is found. What's the earliest pottery, potsherd that's found around this line? That probably indicates around when this was made. So, for example, there's a whale or a monkey.
A beginning date.
Yeah, there's a whale and a monkey that were probably made at least by 50 to 300 CE because there's early Nazca pottery on it.
Love that.
For example. So they were made, from between the 1st century BCE, and there were even some being made after the Nazca collapse up to the 15th century. But those are less common.
It's like that Japanese guy who didn't stop fighting after the war that we talked about.
Which one? There's a lot of them.
It's true. There's Japanese. There was 8 Japanese guys, wasn't there?
Previous episode. Please go listen to that.
Yeah, previous episode. So as
Bro, you
of
can
2020,
stop making
there was
lines.
at least 430 of these figurative ones.
Whoa.
The initial studies were done in the 40s with aerial photography that identified 112. And then high-res satellite and drone photos were taken between 2004 and 2020, which identified 318 more of them.
Jeez, so they're just finding these things? Holy crap.
They're just finding these things.
Dude, with LiDAR? Like, I
just
bet you
this
there's
year,
more.
just this year. That's not even including the ones that were found this year. I'll talk about that in a second. Now, what's funny to me also is that there's a fair amount of interpretation in the figurative shapes, like in people identifying
You
the
just sounded
shapes
like Sean
because-
Connery when you said interpretation. Interpretation.
Yeah, see, now you want to do
Interpretation.
voices? You son of a bitch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what would you call this one? Like, what's this one supposed to be, man?
A dong. Oh,
It's a chicken leg with human hands, but one of them only has 4 fingers.
it's
And
a
the other has
frog
7?
with
It
4
was made
with
by
fork
AI.
fingers. It's a frog. It's a frog with fork legs. He's hopping, but he also has nub hands. Poor frog.
This kind of feels
Yeah.
like that subreddit, what is this cookie cutter? This kind of
Yeah.
feels like that.
Right?
It's very similar to that, yeah. And so this one
what
is
if it's
called
upside
Los-
down? It's a moose.
The common name for this one is Los Manos, just called the hands.
The hands. Yeah, I can see it, except for one only has 4 fingers and the other one has 5.
Look at this one.
That's a scared cat.
Yo, that's like,
It's a scared
that's like
cat.
a mouse or something. It could be a scared cat.
It does
yeah.
look like a scared cat.
It's like,
It looks like a cat with its tail up.
Yeah.
what's up with it's got 4 legs, but then what are these 2 long bits at the back? And then why is there a nubbin in between the legs?
I think that's a bonner.
A nipple?
Oh, do you think that's a bonner?
A singular
It's a
nipple.
bonner.
I thought a nipple as well. It looked kind of nippley to me.
The thing coming out of
But
the
what
back
are the
looks
two-
like it's
Well, that's 'cause
pee.
it's
What are
cold.
the two? What are the 2 structures on the back? There's 4 legs.
Oh,
obviously.
I thought that's what you were talking about. Because I see leg, boner, tail.
leg, boner, tail. Okay,
That's the
Yeah,
name of
I can see
Zach's
that.
autobiography.
the boner and the tail look exactly the same.
Yeah.
No, it's
a really long
leg,
boner.
nipple, leg, boner, tail.
We'll post all these pictures on the Instagram
Yeah.
so you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
This one
don't
is
worry.
one of my favorites. This is a famous one. What do
It's a
you think this one is?
whale.
No,
Yeah, that's a whale for sure.
That's a cat pissing like a dog.
I love it. It has a spiralized eye. Its eye is a spiral.
It's like lifting his leg.
I love
It's
that.
cat pissing.
What blows my mind is these
Ant.
lines are like
Ant spider.
so
Spider
perfectly
ant.
done.
Mm-hmm.
They're so crisp.
Spider Man.
Yeah.
That's a cool spider.
Yeah, it's a
An
cool
ant.
spider.
That's an ant.
Yeah, see, it's called spider, but I also see ant.
I see
Yeah, it doesn't
ant-
have the
ant,
right number
spider.
of legs, right?
That
Yeah,
looks
I know.
nothing like my aunt.
I know this is the one that has spawned 1,000 crackpot theories.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, it's an
No,
alien. He's got 2
that's-
little feet and 2 big eyes.
This one looks different than the others, though. This one doesn't really have lines. It looks like it's more
Yeah.
like carved in.
Yeah,
Into
it
a-
doesn't have the crisp white outline. It's got
It's my
this
friend
gray.
Jeff. It's my friend Jeff. His name is Jeff.
Interesting.
This
Good old
one looks
Jeff.
extremely different from the others.
This one's in the same area as the other one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people
Huh.
call it the astronaut. And then this is kind of one where you can see
Oh.
the conservation issues.
that's a
in the
building.
area.
Oh, they just built a road right through it.
They built
That
a road
sucks.
right through it. Yeah.
Is that a gecko?
It's a-
They couldn't have gone around
Yeah,
it.
it's-
That looks like
it's
a
a lizard.
gecko.
And then behind
Yeah,
it
see,
is the one
classic
that's
gecko
called the
losing his
tree.
tail. No, it'll grow back.
The tree? It does look like an ant. That
They
does look
did
like an
cut
ant
the
in the
tail
back.
off of the lizard. That they may have done
They
that as a
did.
meme.
So that's actually the one that I saw when I went down there. Do you see towards the left
Oh.
side? There's that like
Oh, you-
shitty little
you
tower.
just-
When you're bragging about it. Yeah.
There's that crappy little tower. The
I
other
see the
tower that's
tower.
there wasn't there when I was there. But this is. I went up on that tower, and you
And
could
they
see.
sent pictures
Whoa.
of towers.
You could see that's the tree one in this picture.
I've been on plenty of towers. I want to brag
Oh,
about your
cool.
towers.
Very cool, Zach. I'm fucked up that the astronaut
finger-
one looks
is your
so
finger
different
in
than
that
all the other
picture?
ones.
That's a finger.
It's
in the
all
picture.
photography right
Yeah.
there.
That is my finger in that picture. Shut up.
You were still honing your craft.
Yeah.
What's anything you've ever done, Bo? Shut up.
Fuck.
Oh, he can't think of anything.
Nothing.
So how were the lines made? You've been asking this.
How do they
it's a
work?
great question.
No, I'm asking how long.
Yeah, when were they?
When were they?
So we've talked about this. In between 1st century BCE
He needs a
and
number of
15th
years
century
ago.
CE.
Just give me a number. Don't give me estimates. Just give me a fucking solid number and I'll shut up about it.
All right, this one was made 1,300 years ago.
How did they stay intact for that long?
The surface of the plateau is essentially, if you look at the photos, one thing that you'll notice is it's not like
It's
sandy
flat.
desert. It's very flat.
It's rocks.
It's covered in dark stones. It's very rocky. The stones are covered in iron oxide, and underneath the soil is extremely light. It's and so basically what happens is you just remove those stones, you expose the light soil below it, and you've got the beginnings of a line. Now, the environment on this plateau, it's very stable. It's very windless. There's very little wind. There's an average of about 20 minutes of real rain a year, about 20 minutes of rain a year.
Wow.
And that alone would do a lot of work towards preserving these designs in the desert for as long as they have been. But there's two factors that add an extra amount of protection. So the dark stones, they absorb heat during the day. Then at night, they radiate that heat. And what happens is that this creates a cushion of negative air pressure that protects the exposed soil from any wind that might be happening at night.
What the hell?
Then, because there's very little liquid rain, like I said, 20 minutes of liquid rain a year, but the area does get a haze in the morning. So they have misty mornings. And what this does is
Magical.
It activates a naturally occurring plaster in the soil that kind of solidifies and gives a crusty nature to the exposed soil. So with the soil crusting like that and the kind of thermal pocket above it, they remain very well preserved and protected from the natural elements.
Did they
which
plan
is
that? Because that's fucking crazy.
It's really cool. They were probably maintaining them, because over time rocks will get kicked over it, anything like that. And
Little animal scurries by.
yeah, and these were, judging by the artifacts, the fact that artifacts were found with them, these were living areas. These were places that people went to. They are things that they used. That kind of brings me to the next part, which is the theories and hypotheses about why they were made, right? And so, how do you even start studying these to figure out what people were doing with them? And so, I mean, if you look at the pictures, one thing you see is that the lines are crisscrossing everything. Even the figurative ones have lines going across them. You can see the straight lines are just like going across. So any one theory is probably insufficient.
Hey, Zach. Are there lines going across them?
Yeah, the lines are going across them. They're crisscrossing, baby. Crisscross applesauce, motherfucker. And so...
Do they have apples?
They did not have apples. I think apples are from China. But so these were being made and used over the course of the entire 800 years of the Nazca period. And so it's pretty likely that there's not one reason behind the geocliffs. There's not one use for them. And even if they were made for one reason, it's entirely possible that 400 years later, they meant something completely different. I mean, just think back to 800 years ago from now would be 1224. Like, what would people from the year 1200 have in common with us? Fucking nothing.
They poop.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Gong,
Gong.
So the first person...
Call back. Previous episode, please listen.
I wonder if it's like, in order to be an adult, you gotta make a glyph. What do you make? Oh.
So the first person to spot these and start writing about them was a man named Toribio Mejia Chespe. Chespe? How do you pronounce the X in Spanish? It's like a sh sound, right?
I think so.
Toribio Mejia Chespe.
I think he was asking Bo that.
And so he first encountered the lines at the beginning of the 1900s while he was hiking.
Yeah, very dead.
While he was hiking along the mountain ridges around the plateau, and from those nearby mountains, he could see that they were figurative, and so he started writing about them and getting people interested in the area.
And he was like, "Did I do too much cactus, or is that a spider?"
Right?
There's an ant looking at me.
Why does it have so many toes?
The first person to really start making breakthroughs was a duo called Paul Kosak and Maria Reike. And so Kosak was American and Reike was German. And Maria Reike was really the kind of keeper of the lines for many, many years. She met Kosak in the 1940s when she was in Peru. And the two of them spent the next couple of decades studying the lines together after they first spotted them on a plane flying over the area.
And then they fell in love?
No, it doesn't seem like it. He eventually
God damn it.
left, but Maria never
It's
did.
like Sauron and Gandalf.
She lived there for more or less the rest of her life.
They shared a
Um,
fleeting kiss,
The idea that
Longing.
they had was that the lines worked kind of like a
knowing they
calendar
could never be together.
The lines.
or an observatory.
She loved him, but she loved the lines more.
But she loved the
Yeah.
lines.
That's where she drew the line.
Drawing the
you guys
line.
You guys missed that. Fucking one. Come on. You guys are rusty in your fucking 2 months being
We're
gone.
waiting for you to do that. We're waiting for you.
Oh.
A classic Bozinger.
And so the idea that they had, they developed the idea after watching the sun set in line with one of the lines. They came to the idea that they would be used to predict when seasons would start, when to plant or irrigate or harvest, etc.
Is that the same
yeah,
thing with
so,
like Stonehenge?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, for as long as people have been, it's a really common factor among kind of like early monumental architecture, and I think this counts as monumental architecture. That it was kind of, there's an astronomical element to it because there's no light pollution. You spend a lot of time looking at the stars. The phases of the movement of the sun is really important for determining what time of year it is, what to be doing. So I think the thought that they had was that the sun would set at different lines throughout the year, and then that would be how they would tell when it was what season.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Other ideas that they had were that the shaped ones represented the Nazca constellations, maybe, because constellations are just
Whale in the sky. Whale in
Looking
the
at-
sky.
looking at the stars. Our constellations are certain ones, but other people's constellations were different ones. Other cultures around the world looked at the negative space between the stars, and those were their constellations.
Yeah,
instead
so
of
That's so
ours.
It's kinda
interesting.
bullshit.
I love that.
Because
Some
there'd
of
be
them are
there's
kinda
4
bullshit.
stars up there. That's a whole battle happening. It's like that's a
Mhm.
line.
I think that their theories and their work is really good baseline stuff, but over time, more of the lines were mapped and discovered, a lot of them do line up with solstices and important astronomical
Line
events,
up?
but but it turns out that the ones that do line up are vastly outnumbered by the ones that don't line up with anything astronomical. So it could be that some of them were meant to be calendric or calendrical
Sorry,
lines
y'all,
or
your
aiding in
whole-
astronomy. But it
Your whole
definitely
decades
wasn't
of research was a bunk.
like
Not
the
all can
only
be
thing.
winners. Sometimes
Yeah.
you just, it's like tattoos. Some people get really meaningful tattoos, and some people there's a frog on my leg.
It's just, I think it's just the progress of, as these things are mapped and more of them are found, it just sort of turns out that the ones that don't fit the theory outnumber the ones that do fit the theory. And that's fine. You really have to give Maria Rika mad props because she lived in Nazca for 40 years in his little hut. And the hut that she lived in is now like a museum. And she was studying the lines and she was importantly advocating for them because we saw the one that was cut in half by a highway. They did that, and then she was like, "What the fuck? This is horrible.
Hey,
How
can
can
you
this keep
fucking
happening?"
not, please?
Yeah, and so she started the funding of those observation towers to get tourism into the area, to get more money
Nice.
into the area.
Good job.
She fought the government and helped prevent more highways being built over the lines. And she started the process to get the lines designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which they are now.
Cool.
So they're protected.
Nice. Heck yeah.
And there have been some issues in modern years, like very famously, maybe 10 years ago, Greenpeace did this whole demonstration in the middle of the desert, and they ended up ruining one of the lines. A trucker fell asleep on the highway and drove into one of them. And, there's still protection that needs to be done, but
build a fence, people. Come on.
Yeah, but it would be way worse if they weren't a World Heritage Site. So other studies, this was like the 40s, 50s, and 60s. In the 70s, the thought that was proposed by Bill Isbell is that they were a social mechanism, this is a quote, social mechanism for investing unpredictable surpluses in ceremonial activities. And essentially what he's saying here is this was busy work for laborers that you didn't know what to do with.
I was going to ask if that was the case. If it was like, oh, God, we got this guy. What should we do? Can you go we need like a whale over there. He's like,
Yeah.
really
Just go fuck
over
off for
there.
a minute and go make a whale.
And so this is based on what is something now that's kind of seen as a bit of a fallacy, is connecting the Incas' labor as taxes system to going back further in the Andes in Andean history than we have a good reason to believe it did. we don't really have evidence that they had this sort of labor as taxes system. So it's not likely that they were doing this.
I thought of it more as like, this dude is bad at everything else and he's bungling it, so we should just send him off
Just
and
have
do
him
something
move
else
some
for
rocks.
a while.
And anyway, as we've discussed, it's just moving rocks. There's not actually a lot of labor. It doesn't take a lot of effort to make them.
I wonder if they had kids do it as like a training thing to learn like how to follow directions
Maybe.
It takes skill
and work as a
though.
group.
Like, yeah, it does take
Yeah.
a lot of like you move a rock, yes, but to make something that is 300 feet long that it makes into art
In
I
a
can't
straight
do
line?
that. Yeah, like that's really
Yeah.
hard.
Over, up and
It's,
down, yeah, on a
It does
non-flat
show
surface.
that like an advanced study of geometry, the ability to kind of scale. I mean, they probably made plans in the sand, like drew plans in the ground and then scaled them up. But they would have to use probably like cordage to plan it all out and everything like that. So I don't want to kind of minimize them. It's just the planning was probably greater effort than the actual creation,
Yeah.
That's why my hypothesis makes sense, because it's somebody who's directing it and they're like keeping the worker bees on track.
Yeah. So throughout the 80s and 90s, a lot of the thought by Johann Reinhard, who we've talked about very briefly in the ice mummies episode. He found some ice mummies, and Anthony Avini. They came up with thoughts throughout the 80s that there was cosmological connections like ley lines and Secche lines, which are kind of these like the Secche lines are these kind of like metaphysical lines that connect important aspects of the animated landscape. There's a common belief in Andean mythology or religion that the landscape is animated in some way, like the mountains that are like the important mountains are alive, and the like lines are kind of connecting these features or manifesting connections between important things like water, mountains, kin groups, trade routes, possibly things that had like significance to them. In the 90s, a guy
so like
named
you're
David
drawing
Johnson.
it for the gods to see.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Kind of emphasizing important parts of the landscape. In the 90s, a guy named David Johnson hypothesized that they were pointing to aquifers. It's the desert, so management of like water management is very important because it's the desert. You don't have a lot of actual rainfall. And so his thought was that a lot of the like geometrical shapes were over like wells and marking wells and aquifers and underground water. And it's an interesting thought, but there's no real evidence that
I feel like you could check if that was the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what he did was he used dowsing rods to locate aquifers underground. And dowsing is nothing. Dowsing is it's nonsense. It's pseudoscience of the highest order.
She's just saying this guy's whole thing is bullshit.
Pretty much. And what made this even worse is that he was going around the world and like applying this hypothesis to all geoglyphs and saying that all geoglyphs by every culture, even the ones not in South America, are pointing to water sources.
Why are you even telling us about this?
Maybe
river stuff.
he sold those rods and he was just trying to offload stock to people around the world.
Yeah. Well, this is what
you too can douse at home.
He's like, look, I got to sell these things. Okay, we're go to the lines. Let's try to hawk these things.
He presented a theory at a conference at when I was in grad school that we were hosting at the university, and me and my advisor were just looking at each other while he was talking, like, why did we let this guy in here? And then a photographer from the university newspaper came in while he was talking. And I saw my advisor go over and talk to the photographer, and she came back and she was like, "Oh yeah, I told him that this one is not representative of the entire conference, and please come back later."
Why are you giving more credence to it by telling us now? You could have just left this out and no one would have
He's
known.
exposing him. This is the expose.
Well, if you do your own research on the Nazca Lines, you're going to see people talking about David Johnson's work.
I will not.
We just
I will
bring it up
never
now.
do my own research. How dare you suggest I do my own research?
I was saying that the listeners might. Now, the current perspectives is that they could have been ritual pathways. So this one kind of goes back to a lot of the idea.
It's ritual, and that's archaeology.
I mean,
sorry, that was my archaeology song.
But this is kind of going back to the real idea that, Andean religion was highly based in pilgrimage and going from one place to another. And there's the idea that the lines are meant to be walked along in kind of like a meditative way. A lot of them the width of them is about the exact width of a person walking. They're like the width of, they're like the perfect width to be a footpath.
It's a path.
It's a idea is path. That like, the idea is that you'd kind of meditate and walk along the line.
And I would
cool.
walk 500 lines, and
Whales.
I will walk 500 more.
Just to see the Nazca Lines I walked. Sorry.
Yeah, I lost track of what I was saying.
You're walking the lines.
They were walking
You're walking
500
the lines. You're walking along the lines.
They walk the
And then the other idea is that some of the like smaller ones were meant to be seen while you were like walking into Kawachi or
What
on
about the
this
straight
like, pilgrimage
ones?
path. And they
That's
would
very
tell
confusing.
you like what was important. They were meant to be decorative. They tell you what was important to the people here, what you might expect.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
letting
thinking.
you know what's going on.
Like, it seems like most of these things that you have said are like, oh, it could be some things with the seasons, but also not. It could be wells, but also could be not. I think they were just cool pictures that these people liked. Kind of like the frog leg tattoo, you know?
That's a perfectly valid, I think, explanation. I think that a lot of people kind of want to prescribe a sort of like religious significance to a lot of things or like greater meaning. I think there needs to be more room for whimsy in archaeology.
They thought
people
they were
just kind
neat.
of being like,
Yeah.
people
They
thought that
like
they were
to draw.
cool. Yeah, exactly.
I got lobster tattoo because lobster.
I like lobsters.
You go back in your time, you're like, please tell us the significance of the lines. We need to know. It's been hypothesized. It's been talked to death. And they're like, well, it's neat. It's a whale.
They sounded exactly like that. It's a whale.
Now we could talk more about the crackpot theories. Obviously, there's the people who talk about them in terms of ancient aliens. We all know that
It's
is
aliens.
mumbo jumbo. We hate aliens. I hate talking about aliens.
Hey.
Well, you can just say, I hate aliens.
Zach
You can
does
just
not
say, I
speak
hate
for all of
aliens.
us. Everyone who's listening to Zach does
I
not
love
speak for all of us.
aliens, but I don't like when aliens are used to discredit things that people in the past have done.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
think that aliens have visited us, but if they did, that would be fucking sweet.
That would be sweet,
Yeah.
but I don't think they're making lines.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
I think they're
so,
doing
like,
lines.
Hey, alien drugs.
the idea that they were alien like runways that can all be traced back to Eric von Daniken. He's the progenitor of the modern
Alien
ancient aliens
runways.
movement. He was also
They're gonna
a racist.
they're gonna go in the shape of a whale before they take off.
Zach is just exposing so many people today.
If you look up Eric von Daniken's writing, there's a lot of very thinly veiled and just plain overt racism.
I will not do that.
Yeah, boo.
He was racist. And so yeah.
Stop talking
And
about
the
racism on
idea
this
is that-
podcast.
The idea, the main part of the idea is that the figurative geoglyphs would have to be seen from the sky in order to see what they actually were. But like you could see from my pictures, you only ought to go like not that far up to actually see what they are. You can make replicas of them with coordinates and measurements based off of drawing of a shape in a day or less with a small crew of people. Experimental archaeologists have done this. They've been able to replicate the smaller ones in like a day and the bigger ones in a couple of days. They could have made them to be visible from the sky, but just because they had gods that lived in the sky doesn't mean that they were visited by aliens. It's not.
If I was in the past and I was being religious, I would be like, the sky? Yeah, that's God for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excavations have found the remains of tall posts near the endpoints of some of the lines, where
Oh.
foremen possibly could have observed and ordered around the builders, or
that.
they could have been viewpoints. And also, as we established, the first guy who saw them, you can see them from the nearby hills, and you can tell what they are.
Someone's just standing on a hill yelling at a bunch of people, like, left, left.
But
You
not
gotta
even just
make me
ordering them
armed.
around. If you're just going for a hike in the hills, you can see the lines. Like that's enough to see them. The fact that like the idea that you have to be on a plane or a fucking spaceship to tell what the figurative like lines are, it's a massive exaggeration. just need to be on a nearby hillside.
Yeah. Well, plus you live in this barren desert. There's nothing around you. There's no rain. There's no wind. You're bored. If you're on a hike, let's make some art. We need to see something that isn't just fucking dirt.
I wonder, has anyone looked at the scale of them and like seen if looking at them from lower elevations makes like the scale make more sense than if you're looking at them from really high?
Maybe.
Forced perspective.
I don't know.
Like perspective
that'd be
situation?
cool. Kind of like how David, like the Michelangelo's David, has really weird proportions.
Yeah, if you look at it like from actually straight on, it looks weird, but because it's meant to be viewed from below.
Yeah.
His hands are so big.
Anyway, I was reading a book about this called Frauds, Myths, and Mysteries by a guy named Kenneth Fader.
Oh, I thought you said
there's
frogs.
just a part
Here
that I
comes
like.
some expose.
That I want to
Yeah,
quote.
I heard some frogs too.
For the hypothesis that the ancient people of South America built the lines themselves, we need only assume that they were clever. For von Daniken's preferred hypothesis, on the other hand, we have to assume the existence of extraterrestrial intelligent life, unproven. Assume that they visited Earth in the distant past, unproven and not very likely. Assume that they needed to build rather strange airfields, pretty hard to swallow. And then, for added amusement, instructed local Indians to construct enormous representations of birds, spiders, monkey, fish, and snakes. Those assumptions are bizarre, and the choice under Occam's razor is abundantly clear.
Why are we even talking about Van Daniken? He's a Van Damme idiot again.
Yeah. Now, for a crackpot theory that I love, this is insanity, and I'm enamored with it. There's a guy named Jim Woodman, and he's a crackpot, but I want to talk about this just because it's a fun kind of crackpot. He had the hot air balloon hypothesis, and his hypothesis is that they observed the lines and the figures with hot air balloons, and so he used quote-unquote ancient weaving techniques to make a balloon out of canvas.
Did he find any
fabric
balloons to prove this theory?
You just said you're just saying stuff, Jim.
Balloons.
What the fuck?
He made a balloon. He made a balloon.
Guys.
He made a balloon. He wove a balloon. He attached a seat to it that's shaped like the reed boats they use in the area, and then he filled it with smoke, and it climbed up to 300 feet. He painted the lines on the sides of it. There is no evidence whatsoever that they would have done this, but this
Jim,
is insane. I love it. Look at this picture.
Oh, dude, you gotta calm down, man.
Yeah, some people. Who funded this?
He did it
I think
himself.
he probably funded it himself.
Where did he get
this
money?
Is the kind of insanity.
He probably already had it.
Holy crap!
This screams rich guy shooting a car into space. He just did it because he could.
Except he shot himself into the air to look at lines.
Phenomenal. All right. So to end this out, I want to talk about we are still finding new figurative pieces. We're still finding new Nazca lines. The first one that I can remember happening while I was paying attention was in 2020 when they found a kitty cat and they did some restoration to it. Now you can really see it on a nearby hill. Look at this kitty cat. I love him so much.
That's a kitty.
He got no legs.
Oh, that's a kitty cat.
And this is
it has legs. It has two little front legs. They're just tucked.
Yeah, he's tucked in. He's loafing. He's doing a little loaf the way kitty cats do. I love him so much.
Nazca loaf.
Then earlier this year, though, this is what really fucking blew the shit apart. Earlier this year, a group of Japanese researchers published that they used drone surveys and machine learning to identify 303 new figurative geoglyphs.
Oh, hell yeah.
A lot of geoglyphs.
That's a lot of AI.
Machine learning. Let's go.
You can find the article that they used online. It's published. You can find it for free in the PNAS.
The what?
Love the PNAS.
The what?
Oh, the PNAS is the best journal.
Yeah.
It's PNAS.
A penis journal.
It's the PNAS.
A penis journal.
It's PNAS.
It's the PNAS.
Is it a big penis?
It's extremely legitimate. It's extremely official.
Do I need a club?
Yeah.
I love that if you call it machine learning, it sounds studious, but you call it AI, you sound like an idiot.
Yeah.
So it's the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the PNAS.
It's the PNAS.
So they identified 303 new figurative geoglyphs that had previously gone unnoticed because they expanded the amount of aerial photography in high res, and they were a lot smaller. So a lot of the ones that they identified were ones that were 30 to 50 feet across versus the famous 300 foot.
Little baby ones.
Little baby penis.
Oh my gosh, this one is so cute. I'm looking at the pictures of them in the article. Yeah. They're adorable.
They're
what the fuck?
Really cute. They're really
what
good.
is this one? Oh my gosh. It looks like a turkey. That one's like for
like a nice
sure
little
looks like a
collage.
turkey.
Oh shit, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff in this penis.
I really like this one that looks like a whale with a knife.
They
There's
all
one that
look
looks
like
a
wood
person
sprites.
wrangling a monkey. There's a couple of parrots.
This one's my favorite because he reminds me of a hamburger helper.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just is like it's like a little guy with spiky hair.
Yeah. So they
like
trained
the one on the top right. He's got little horns and two little legs. He looks very silly.
So they trained an AI model to look for these figurative glyphs. Yeah, machine learning to look for these figurative geoglyphs, and then they spent 1,200 hours screening the AI identifications and verifying that they were correct.
Wow.
So there's
Cool.
a lot of work went into this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the one in the bottom middle? It looks like it's wearing a cat suit. It looks like a man wearing a cat suit.
Yeah, it's like a cat with like an open mouth. It's yelling for dinner, maybe.
That's insane.
It's
And that one looks like a giraffe. That's probably a llama.
This goes back to like these are just awesome pictures that these really creative people just decided to make, and I that's my theory. I don't think there's anything other than that, other than they were bored and they had some fun, and it just happens to be in a place where they lasted forever.
It looks
Well,
great.
what they
I
wrote
love
is
it.
repeatedly observing relief-type geoglyphs from the trails probably facilitated sharing information about human activities related to these scenes.
So if you're like, what's going on in this area? Oh, there's maybe some monkeys that we have to be careful of. There's maybe a turkey and a llama that we could see. The birds.
Yeah, I really like the llama. Well, it's very good.
There's one that looks like there's one that looks like a scared turkey or like peacock, and I'm into it.
Oh, it's a turkey for sure, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, it's got to be a turkey.
It's a biblically accurate turkey.
They have such cute little faces.
That's a really good. Did they have turkeys down there?
I don't know.
Or is it this is gonna hurt. They have to have written about that.
But will you get a tattoo of any of these?
I would get a tattoo of every single one of these.
The hamburger helper hand, for sure. He's my favorite.
Speaking of tattoos, Bo, you still have yet to get the Get Dumped On tattoo that you promised us you would get.
Oh, trust me, I've actually been talking to my tattoo artist. I'm getting a couple tattoos here. That's one of them.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, don't think I forgot. Come on now.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's probably a severed head. The hamburger helper hand.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. There's no turkey species that goes below the Yucatan. So,
Oh shit! Is it a turkey?
is it a turkey?
Yes.
I gotta research this.
So my theory is that turkeys made all of these. I'm going to make a balloon to prove it. Hold on. I'll be right back.
I love that balloon, man. I love it so much.
I hate it. And it's stupid. I wish that he died when he was doing it.
Like one thing had to go wrong and he would have totally fucking ate it.
Unfortunately, he was very good at making shitty balloons that didn't kill him.
Yeah. Damn.
I'm going to say that this is my favorite thing that I learned is that they did this and they found all these because I love all of them.
It's like they almost doubled the number of known geoglyphs. It's really cool. It's a really cool study. I was so stoked when it came out earlier this year.
I think my favorite thing is just that these Nazca people clearly had some fun making these things. And I'm glad that they did because I'm having fun looking at them these many thousands of years later.
But what was your favorite thing that you learned?
When Zach finally told me when it happened.
Zach, what was your favorite thing that you learned while remembering all that you knew about the Nazca Lines?
The kitty cats.
Kitty cats. Love them. We love kitty cats.
Love those kitty cats. It was probably, I think, a pampas cat is the understanding of what it was. So
cute.
That area of the country does have little kitty cat sized cats. There's a lot of cats in the Americas. And so they had little kitty cat sized cats.
Fucking love cats, man.
Hell yeah.
Look at the pampas cat. They have such a funny looking face. Look at him.
Look at a little guy.
Yeah, funny face, weird ears. His ears are weird.
Yeah.
But I like them.
Hell yeah.
I love him.
Is that the end of the episode?
What a
Are
great
you
guy.
done?
That's everything. That's all I got.
All right.
What do you think?
It was great. I loved
Good
it.
comeback? Was
Good
this
comeback.
a good comeback
It's
episode?
New year, new us. This is posting on
New year,
January
new
1,
us.
so
Yeah,
Well,
and if you have
back.
more recommendations for us to do podcasts, I'll do the next one.
whoa.
Yeah. Now I really should have brought this up beforehand instead of bringing it up on the air, but I would think it would be great if we maybe in 2025 were bi-weekly instead of every week.
What the fuck?
Yeah, we gotta do that.
Why would you bring that on air?
I was advocating
Live
for
reaction.
once a month, but
Shocked. I'm flabbergasted. I am speechless. There's no words. Can't say anything.
Here's the main issue.
so
Here's the
you
main
heard it
issue
here,
is that I won't
folks,
have time.
first.
I won't have time to make another episode in time to record it so that we can have another one out next week.
Back to the mines, boy. The episode
You,
mines.
don't forget,
He yearns for them.
You're here forever.
Forever. Andrew
All right,
and
well,
Bo,
you can
you
just
brought
cut
us
this
into
out.
this podcast. Andrew and Bo, you take us out of this podcast.
Hey, thanks for listening to Get Dumped On, the Info Dump podcast.
Yeah, but I hope you had a great time learning about weird drawings.
Oh, is that at the end of your sentence?
Yeah, that was it, that was it, yeah.
And everything
That's
else,
not
and all the Zach
the tone of your
exposing
voice is
all
not
of
how
these people,
sentences end.
of all these people that Zach tried to expose, especially the balloon guy who's an idiot.
Tell the people where they can find us when we decide to post.
We'll get there. I'm also, I want to apologize for people if you're disappointed like I am for Zach not doing an accent or an impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find
I'm
this-
sorry that they
that's-
interrupted you at the beginning, Zach. I liked the scene that you were setting. I thought that it was nice.
Thank you. I
It's just
appreciate it. This is
missing-
why.
it was
This is
missing
why. This is
something.
why we're married.
Oh, you know what? I changed my mind. My favorite thing about the episode, apart from all the cool stuff, was when Ash started being a hype man from across the room. I
Yeah, that was
love
also
that.
great.
Let's go!
Yeah, it was pretty
The
good.
woos from afar,
Yeah.
my favorite.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I
You
love
can
a nice
find us
faraway
on
woo.
Instagram at Get Dumped On Podcast and everything else. We have a website. I forgot what it was because it's been so long. It's Zach, tell us what it is.
It's podpage.com/getdumpedonpodcast. I should probably resume payments because right now if you go there, it says that the site is expired.
Oh my God, that was so quick. Anyway, send us a message on Instagram. Send us an email. If you have any suggestions, send us a DM. Slide into the DMs. Be like, whoop.
Yeah. If you want to suggest an episode, I'll do the next one.
Bo will do the next one.
Or if you suggest episodes and you want to pick a host, you can after I do
Actually,
it first.
I like that. To be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey, I want to hear Bo talk about global warming, and that would be fun.
Mhm.
We should start doing a segment where listeners write us letters and then we read them and respond to them. So if you have a question that you want us to live respond to on the podcast, write us a letter.
I like that.
If you have a historical question or a
just
time in history,
Any question,
Yeah,
really.
but write us a letter. So I want you to mail it to Zach and Ash's house at something. Drive.
You can also email
1,
it
2,
to
3, 4, 5, 6. This is the place we live. Drive in any town, USA. 11111.
Anyway,
Requires
it's,
5
email
stamps
it.
though.
it's
Email
they're
it.
very far. It's
Please
very,
email
very
it.
far. But it's good to be back. We're happy to be back. 2025 is going to be a good year for Get Dumped On.
Apparently we were
the
bi-weekly back. Cool.
Bi-weekly
Info Dump
podcast now.
Well, we're a bi-weekly
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Good.
Maybe me and
Maybe
Bo will
once
have
a
a little
month.
special come out.
That's what I was gonna say. Like me and Andrew could be the fillers in between.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It will be
maybe
just
if you
tragic.
keep complaining, we'll make it
100%.
monthly.
Are you threatening
Okay,
us?
bye.
I'm
You
leaving.
piece
Yeah,
of shit.
I'm threatening you.
All right. Well,
Okay,
you guys
bye.
find
That's a threat.
See
Okay,
everybody.
bye.
Love you back. Love you
Goodbye.
back.
I love you. Goodbye.
Ash, you're on the air. I'll fight it fucking
Goodbye.
now.
Goodbye.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Bo and Andrew didn't go to college because that's just the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped On an Info Dump podcast.
I think it's really important that everybody know earlier that I said the word whale and the sound form looked like a whale, and I was like,
That's really good.
"Oh,
Can you take a screenshot?
Did you yell from across the room?
you know it." I love whales and things that look like whales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Take us out, Horn Honk Ricky.